Okay, today we are going to go over course history, class rank, and transfers of students. We are going to skip the transcript part of the documentation. We are going to have a separate training on that on December 12th. So if you have not signed up and you're interested in transcripts, we're also going to talk about load settings, which can apply also to the report cards. You can go on Event Scheduler and sign up for that. Today's documentation, I'm going to show you a couple different things that we are going to use if you don't already have it, but don't forget about your Learning Center. So inside the Learning Center, we have two documents that we're going to use today in student information. The one is under courses. So not much has changed since last year. So if you still have last year's, you can still continue with that. But if you go into the course history, class rank, and transcript guide overview, the guide is in there. So I know it says it at the top, but you have to click on that in order to get to the PDF for the guide. Or you can just follow along with each of the areas within. Hold on one second. So that's one area that we are going to look at. And since we are already in the Learning Center, the second topic that we are going to look at are transfers, and that is in the procedural checklist. It's really not a checklist, it's more of scenarios, but in here, you will see one that is called student transfers. So right here, we are going to be using that one, and we'll go through two of those scenarios and look at a couple of the appendices. The other documents, I have not updated them for this year. Sherry did that before she had left, but the other documents are in the document section of student information. Don't forget, there's a lot of documents in here that are helpful, quick little tips that aren't in the Learning Center. So Sherry has posted those here, and we will get these, make sure they're up to date for next school year and so forth. But we will look at the JVS marks, attendance, import, export. And if you just want it for your own reference, you can look at the transfer, but that's already been completed for this year. But just if you wanted to have it, you can have it. And then the other one you can look at is the assessment extract and import. You can also find that information in the Learning Center, but it is not a guide that is easy to print as a PDF. So Sherry combined those two, the extract and the import, together into one document so you can print it out together there. Okay, so let's get started looking at our course history and class ranking. So the first part of this, and a lot of this, the course history, the class ranking, and so forth, is getting everything prepared for your transcripts, which we're not going to print today, but we are going to look at those. So look at these things to prepare for your transcripts when you're ready to run those. So some other things that I want to bring up, I'm going to be using my nephew today. So if you guys see a student, I have permission from my sister-in-law. So we're going to be looking at him today. But one of the things that the course history does is it allows you to pull in those grades and attendance if they're attending a JVS or if they're coming from another school. It's especially nice with TCCSA districts if they're moving around, because you can just transfer those course grades and the attendance, and it pulls right in. We also have something called District Trust. So that could be set up so you can view the attendance, you can view the courses and the marks, but it is actually not importing them into your district. So it is very important that you do the actual import instead of just looking at the trust to see the information. So let me pull up Tyler here. So looking at Tyler, there's a couple different things that I want to show you. So one is I'm going to be in SIS and I'm going to go to student. So there's two things that we are going to look at in here. So, actually, I'm wrong. We're going to Easy Query. Sorry, Easy Query and Easy Students. We're doing the transfer later. So first we're going to look at him in his home district, which is Rittman. So we're going to look at Easy Students, and then you can see in here, I have something called shared student data. So if I look at the shared student data, this is showing me that we are sharing Tyler between Rittman and Wayne County Schools Career Center. So attendance is not being taken at Rittman High School, but if I'm looking at my daily attendances, so up right here, it's showing what I'm reviewing. You can see that the Rittman side is blank because he does not attend at Rittman at all. So some of you might have students that attend half day at the home school and then half day at the career center. So you might see both. And then you can see over here for the career center are his absences, and he leaves half a day for work. So if there's anything else in there, you're going to see the in and out times, or if it was a full absence, etc. So that is shared student data. As long as you have that district trust set up between the two districts, then you can view this information. I can also view assessments and course history. So your course history are the grades. So I'm just changing the data to review. Okay, I can leave this open. So I do not have to necessarily pull over the school year if I want multiple school years. I might just want to look at my earned grades. So anything that he's earned, that would be a final grade. If you wanted grading period grades, then you would choose Progress 1. I'm just going to look for this instance. I'm just going to look at earned. Okay. And then the same thing in my shared district, what do I want to see? Do I want to see their grading period grades, which would be my Progress 1, or do I want to just see the earned? And I looked at several districts, and it looks like most home districts just bring in the final grade. So that would be your earned. Okay. And then you can see down here, there's some things that I can do. I can just show high school credit, the ones that are included in GPA and so forth. So those are the filters if I wanted to pull out specific information. And then you can look down here and see, okay, so I see here is a language arts class, here's his final and his average because I did not display my filter yet. So if I say display, now I'm only going to see my finals. Okay, so that language arts, I don't see the averages. Now I'm just looking at the finals. Okay, so again, it's a way to see the information from your career center, but you are actually not pulling in that information. So what you're seeing here from the Wayne County Schools Career Center, if this is not in the student's course history, it does not get added into their GPA. So it doesn't count towards their ranking. So that's why we're going to bring those grades in and do the course history for these students. So another item in your Easy Query, Easy Student is looking at that student's course history. So if I go to course history with my student in context, if I'm looking at the grid, I can't figure out the other two. So I'm not going to show you them because it doesn't show the final grades. I can't figure out why or what I'm doing wrong. But the grid does. So if I look at the grid, it's going to show what course it is, and then his grading period grades, class, the semester averages, and then the final grade. And that's going to be for every course that he took for every grade level. So, and he's a senior this year, so his is really long. I'm not going to go through it. But again, it's a way to see that course history that's from your school. So here's your school and anything that you have manually put into the student's course history itself. Just be aware and make note, and I will note this later when we are working on this. When you are adding course history to any of your students, this does not automatically update the GPA set. So you have to remember to refresh that. So we are going to look at GPAs here and see what we can do. So I am skipping in the documentation. Pages number 3 and 4 are not used, so you can cross those out if you want to. I am skipping over to page number 5. Okay, so we are going to look at our GPA set. We already had a GPA class that was with our report cards. So everything is recorded and posted on our website. So if you're not comfortable setting up GPAs, or if I've gone through this too fast since it is a review, you can always go back to our website. And then in student services, we have our videos listed here. So you can go back to the one for the report cards, honor rolls, and GPA. Okay, so we are going to look at our GPA set maintenance. Oh, sorry, need to switch to the building level. So you can see in here, I have my 9 weeks. So each of my 9 weeks GPA, as well as a cumulative 4.0 and a cumulative weighted. So a weighted would include either difficulty points or add-on points. I only know one district that is using add-on points, but multiple districts use the difficulty level or the difficulty scale for your weighted, your CCP classes, or your honors classes. Okay, so we're going to go through, we're going to look at one of these. So I'm going to click on the little edit, because typically when you are getting all your information ready for your transcript has your cumulative GPAs on there. Typically, you don't put a 9 weeks grade on a transcript. So you want to make sure these two are up to date. So I'm going to click on the pencil. So you would have it named. So this is my 4.0 scale. So mark credit types. I don't know why they just don't say current school year, because this is what you want for the current school year. And right now, unless you have students taking a CCP class or a credit recovery class that they've already completed, most of our students so far don't have an earned grade or a final grade, because we haven't made it to semester if you're doing semester finals or the year-end final. But mark credit type is the current school year. The previous school year would be any of the previous school years, and it is going to include the final grade, which is the earned. So, and I am looking at the 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th grade year for the final. So reporting term fin, and the mark type is final. So you're asking, well, what about a student? Why aren't you marking 8th grade? I have students that took Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Because it is a class that is marked is high school credit, so it will come onto the transcript without checking the 8th grade, because some of you might not even see or have that option to check 8th grade on this screen. But because it is marked is high school credit, it will automatically come over. So then I'm going to go to my next screen. This is my calculation. Most of us, sorry if you hear me flipping my papers. I have all my notes in the documentation, so sorry about that. So my calculation, most of us use the standard GPA calculation, which is your points earned times your credits attempted. And so that's how we typically calculate. I don't think, or I don't know anybody that's using a different one. Sometimes our middle schools might use the GPA by course count. So this is just how many credits they have divided by how many points they got. So it's a very simple calculation. But at the high school level, we are typically the standard. Your precision is the number of decimal places you want for the GPA to go out. So by default, it sets to 3. If you only want it to go out 2 places, so you want it to say like 3.75, then you would change this down to 2. If you want it more than 3, if you want it 3.755, 4 places, then you can increase that to 4. The missing student marks, you would not change this. You would leave this as ignore mark. The other 2 would not create that course in the GPA if there's a missing mark. So you don't want to ignore the student or use 0 because this would be negative towards the student. So we just, if there's not a mark in there, they don't have a grade for, English 11 because the teacher forgot to put them in, it's just going to bypass that course. So the other ones, it would count against them. This is my regular 4.0 scale. So because of that, I am not going to check difficulty points. But if this is weighted and I want the full GPA, then I would check difficulty points. And like I said, I have one district that is using my add-on points. So if this was your weighted GPA set, then you would check the add-on points. Include other schools, you of course would want that. That would include our CCP classes that they're attending at colleges and or our career centers that we are importing. The prorated credit, if this is checked, and this is just in the documentation, and I know this has happened to people, if this is checked, those 2 other options disappear. So if you're not seeing those other 2 options, if you uncheck it, those then populate. Use manual course marks credit details. So any course history that you put in there, it will use those as well. This, hopefully they take it out soon, but it's still in there for the class of 2020. It will eventually get there. It'll be gone. Okay. So I'm going to go to our ranking. Really not much on this would be changed. Your source, you're calculating the GPA. And then if there's ties, you want to count all the students the same. So if you change it to count each student separately, if 2 kids are tied with a 4.0, one would be number 1 and one would be 2. I don't know how it classifies that. I think it goes alphabetically, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So typically we want them to have a tie, so we count all the students the same. If you did make any changes to this, you would hit save. I did not, so I am going to click on cancel. If there are any changes or you tweak anything throughout the year, you always want to make sure that you refresh your GPA set. This should always be done anytime before you are printing your transcripts to make sure that that it is up to date. Okay, because it does not run all by itself. If you're bringing in course history, things like that, it doesn't automatically update that student's GPA without clicking on the refresh. So you can see I updated this yesterday afternoon. So if I click on this, it does start the refresh or the recalculation process. It does not automatically update the screen. So there's 2 ways to check to see when your GPA set was last calculated. One, I can refresh the screen here. So I can click on reload screen. Or if I go into my settings in management, it will show here. So the same place that you go to when you're printing report cards or transcripts, things like that, it will show that it's doing the recalculation and what the job status is. So I can see that it's been complete since 9:50. And then if I do my refresh here, this will update as well to 9:50. Okay. So next, GPA set has been updated. We're ready to go. We're ready to look at our GPA, our class ranking. So I'm going to go to my go-to menu and I am going to go to my course history. So you can type in course history here or under SIS, you can go to course history here. Same process. So we have two options when we're in course history. We have our GPA and rank. This can only be done by grade level. So if I'm looking at this, it's going to have my GPA sets here. So this is the one that I just refreshed. So I know it's fresh. I know it's recalculated. So now I want to run my class ranking. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to pick my grade level. So I'm going to pick grade 12. I'm going to click on view. And now it's going to show me all of my students, what rank they are, their GPA, if there was add-on points, okay, and then their earned credit and so forth. If you want to see it for your weighted one, I could just switch up here. I'd switch to my weighted. Still 12th grade. I'm going to view that one. And then you can see Molly here had weighted classes. So because of that, it bumped her up to first ranking of 1. Each of these, if I look at these, whether I'm in the regular or the weighted, I can click on the little magnifying glass to view the details of that student. So if I click on that, it takes me into the individual student to their GPA details. So this is a nice screen. It shows everything for the student. So if I look in here, it shows me what GPA I'm looking at. So I'm looking at the weighted, that it's using the difficulty points and includes the previous years. This is also where you can see, remember, I did not update my weighted GPA set. So this screen is also telling me, hey, you know what? This GPA is based on today when I came to the screen, but the GPA was last calculated yesterday. So if you see a difference between the GPAs here, this is when you need to go back to your GPA set and click on that refresh. But looking at the details, it's going to show you everything that the student has. So you can see here, it's included in their total credits, included in the GPA, is high school credit. So this is where if a student was taking an 8th grade class, it would populate here on this screen because it is checked for is high school credit. So then to calculate, it would take your point value times your credits attempted. You would add all those up to get your points. So then it's your points divided by your credits to come up with your GPA. Okay, so that's our standard. So you can see right here, it's saying what it's doing and it's the standard. So you can also run a report for this. If you want to make a note, the documentation is on page 40 of the guide. So if you just want to make a note here, you can run the R325. So when you're running it, you can pick what grade level it's for, students, your active non-residents, what GPA set are you using, if you're using your weighted or not weighted, and then it's going to sort it by rank. So then when I submit this, give it a second. So if we look at this screen, this would be identical to what we were looking at before. Okay, so you can see their GPA over here, and then where they are in their ranking. So you can see all those ties again. Okay, so that's a PDF copy of it versus looking at it on screen. So the R325 is the actual report for your GPA ranking. Okay. Any questions so far? I don't see anything in the chat. Okay, I'm going to keep on going. So next we are going to look at course history. So I'm going to get a student in context. So if I go to now, instead of just going to SIS course history, now I'm going to go to SIS student and then course history. Because I have that student in context, it is going to show me the information for the individual student. So I can see that GPA history, the information that I just saw. So this is going to be every time that the GPA set was ran. So if I go back into my weighted, this is the screen we saw earlier. Okay. But this time we are going to go into the course history. So one thing that I want to point out, and this is something that I learned going through all of this, that you can kind of customize the screen how you want it to look. So again, we're looking student by student and looking at their course history. There is something right here. And sometimes for new people, it might automatically pop up. For people that have been in the system and have been working around, the filters are hidden. I didn't even know there were filters in here. I just assumed that it just populated this report. So if we click where it says show filters, this is where we can say, hey, what do you want to display in the course history screen? Okay, so I'm going to say I only want my earned credits. Okay, so that's how we're calculating the GPA. So that's what I want to display is earned only. If you wanted something else, such as your grading periods, then you would pick your progress one and so forth. Okay, we'll look at the I want to in a little bit after we look at all our settings, because this allows us to be able to save our settings. Our school year, you don't have to worry about bringing anything over. It will look at multiple school years for the student based on their course history, including mark types. So be careful with this depending on what you want available or what you want final mark. But because we said earned only, it's going to show the final mark anyways. This is another one that I think by default, it does mark it as no. So you do want to say, yes, show manual courses with no marks, because if you begin typing something in and you never put the mark in because it's two different tabs, and we'll go through that with a manual entry. Maybe you put the course in, but you forgot to add the grade. You want to be able to see that. So you're like, why is that blank? Oh yeah, that's right. I never put that grade in. So it's important to have that marked as yes, so that you can always see what courses are for that student. And then the high school credit is checked, because those are the ones that are going to be included in the GPA. This is kind of cool that you can pick what columns you want available. So like I said, I have one district that does add-on points. So if that district wants to see the add-on level for that class, they can bring that over to the left side, or I'm sorry, to the right side, so they can see that information. But you can see these are the defaulted ones. It's going to show the course name, the course section, or I'm sorry, the course short name. If you want the full course name, you can also bring that over. So you know, you might not know the course names yet because you might be new to your district. So this might help you, you know, instead of just seeing those short names, this might help you decide what you can see and what the class is. And then credits attempted, credits earned, and so forth. So once you have everything set and the columns that you want displaying, okay, so they're over on the right side, then you would come up here and say, I want to, and save my settings. So if you are one that wants to see the level of difficulty and you bring it over to the right side, so you made that change. If I say I want to save, next time you come into the screen, the filters are going to be hidden, but you would also see that level of difficulty again. You would not have to click on show filters and pull that over. Also remember that each of these columns are sort fields. So right now, it's in chronological order for the student. So you can see it goes all the way back to 2017 to current at the top. If you want to change anything, marks or credits attempted, anything like that, you can just click on any of these and it will change the order. So if you want to look at schools and group the schools together, so I can see all my TCCSA test district, and then any of my CCP classes are down at the bottom. If I want to go back to the school year in chronological order, one, it's going to do from oldest to newest, and then click on it again and it'll be newest to oldest. Maybe it's going. Okay. So looking at the course history of our students. So if we look here, so how is this populated? There's two ways that your course history is populated. One is by the student's course assignment. So any of those are going to be indicated with a lock. So that means the student is enrolled and is scheduled to English 12 section 1. Okay, so anytime the student is assigned to a class, it automatically brings their final grade over into their course history. So that's automatic. So for example, this student's, so if I'm looking at the student, this is my student Ben, and I'm like, he didn't get a B in English. He got an A. Why does this say B? That needs to be updated. Maybe the teacher forgot to resubmit after the final exam or whatever it might be. And you have to adjust this. You can't unlock it here. So what you would have to do is put this school year in context. Okay. So, and this is for English 12. So I would put that in context for 23-24. I would find my student. I would go into my student marks. And here is his final grade. So it says it's a B. He was supposed to have an A with a C plus, but we're giving him an A. Okay, so we're gonna change that grade and then save changes. Remember, this does not update the teacher's grade book. So if the teacher's grade book is still reflecting the B, that teacher should be updating it as well. But if it was just something as simple as they forgot to redo the check equals to resubmit grades after their final test or whatever it might be, you can manually adjust a grade if needed. Or maybe they turned in their project after the school year, you have to update it that way. Now, if I go back to the student's course history, and remember, changing a grade like that also does not update the GPA. Here's his English 12 grade, and it is now an A. Oh, except I have to go back to the current year. So here's his English 12. Oh, this is the one I changed. So this is his English 12 grade, section 1, and then it changed from a B to an A. Okay. So that's if it's locked. So again, that's coming from the student's course assignments that they were scheduled to. Anything that is imported, such as from the Career Center, it is manually added because maybe it's a credit recovery, it's a CCP class. You can manually add those and you will see the pencil here. So for example, for my pre-calc, so we'll look at this one. So if I click on the pencil, it's going to say, what grades are you entering for this class? Oops, hold on one second. So apply and I can view those marks. So there's his pre-calc if I need to make adjustments to it. So those allow you to edit as you see them, the locks, you would have to go to the student mark entry with the school year in context. Okay. Okay, now adding. Let me get back student. History. Thinking. If you need to add a manually entered course, okay, so if I click on this, there are two sections to this. There's the course details and then the student marks. Okay, so if I am looking at the course details, so sometimes our students take classes during the summer, so it might be at a different high school. Maybe they're taking a PE or a health class to get it out of the way. It might be a CCP class. But a tip is when you are manually adding a course, try to find something that it is related to. So maybe a student is taking a foreign language that you don't offer in your district. Maybe you only offer Spanish and the student is taking German. So you're not offering German. Pull up the Spanish class because it's going to fill in some of the required areas and then you would change it accordingly. So you would change it from Spanish to German and so forth. So any of my required fields, I would have to fill in, but what is not required and easily missed is this first section up here. The school year that this course was, the grade was earned. So when did the student earn the grade? So if the student earned it last year, I am going to pull in last year's school year. If it was 2 years ago and so forth. So I can bring that in. So again, I have Ben in context. He's a 12th grader this year. So you can see right now it says grade level 12. But if I am adding a course for last year, notice that it will automatically, it should automatically update that to 11. Why didn't it? Why does it, when I do stuff without people looking, it works? Maybe because I don't have the course in yet. Let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to do a health class. So you can, if you have the course information, or you can click on the 3 dots. So I don't know the exact course name, so I'm going to type in health here and search for it. I have 3 health classes that came up. So I see this is the one that I wanted to add. So I'm going to click on select this course. And then you can see how it populates this information. This does come from their profile. It was working earlier, but I think I might have had Tyler in context. This student probably was 12th grade last year as well. Let's do it this way. Okay. So it will pull in this information. Again, if you were doing something like a Spanish class, pull that in and you're going to change this information to German. But like the area of study might be in there for foreign language and stuff like that is already done. Same thing with CCP classes. If you have your level of difficulty, that will come in as well. So as I'm going through this, your EMIS code, that's very important that you have the correct EMIS code. For health, it's generic, so it's just health education. If you are doing a language, make sure that you are changing to the correct language for that student. So if you were doing the German, you would need to switch that it was for the German class. All of these are checked by default because that previous course. here is the school IRN. So maybe this student took this at, they took it at Worcester City. So I can put in Worcester City's IRN, or I can click on the little search and it will allow me to search and find the IRN for that school. If this is an out-of-state school, maybe they did some type of credit recovery. If I put in 6 nines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you will see then it updates and it's going to populate it's out of state, private, or PSEO. This field can be editable. So, but make a note that whatever you put in this field, this is what shows up on the transcript. So you want to be consistent. So if a student took 2 different classes from the school over the summer, one you might spell out Baltic High School, and the other one you just put Baltic HS. So then on the transcript, it's going to show those 2 different variances of how you typed it in here. So just be aware this does show up on that transcript. So we're going to put this in. If it was a CCP class, you would put your college IRN in there. And then if you want to just view it, you can say save and view, but this is where I'm saying that's why that on the previous, you want to make sure that you show the marks if the courses, if they have no marks, because you might accidentally click here and then forget to enter the mark for the student. But I'm going to click save and enter mark here. And that is going to take me to the student's mark screen. So then this is where I'm going to put in the mark for the student. So what grade is it? A lot of times we just bring in those final grades, you know, even if it's especially our CCP classes, but if it's coming from another high school, you might just want what they got in English, you know, just their final grade. What mark type it is, I'm going to pick final, and then what grade they had. So you can be specific if you want. If you are a numeric school, which I don't think our numeric schools are on here, but you would put in the numeric mark here as well. And then what this is. So if it was a grading period, you would use Progress 1. If you were using a semester average, you would use Progress 2. And then since we are using final, we are using earned. And then your credit ratio, as long as they're getting 100% credit for the class because they completed it, you would put 100% and I would click on add. And then this is going to bring that grade over for the students, so that I can see that now on the student's course history. So again, I can look at the course details, make any modifications, but if I go back to that student, back to their course history. Here is the one from Baltic High School, and they got a final grade of A-. Okay, and then if I needed to modify it for any reason, I can click on the pencil and I can come in here to modify that course. Any questions so far? Okay.
Kelly, I do have a question.
Sure.
So I had a student this year who transferred in as a senior from Akron Public Schools,
Okay.
and they give semester final grades. So say she took like Chinese 2 her freshman year. Do I have to like go in and make Chinese 2 1 and Chinese 2 2 to assign her a final grade for the first half of the year and a final grade for the second half of the year? Do you know what does that make
Yeah,
sense?
because they're receiving credit halfway through.
Yes, yeah, as a final grade. It just makes their transcript so long then.
Yeah, Scott brought up a good point. Do they have the same grade at the semester time for that final as they would at the at the end of
And that's what I'm
second
running
semester.
into for probably 85% of her grades. They're not the same.
So
So
then,
like,
yes, you would have to put it in twice so you can accommodate for both grades.
okay. Okay. I just thought maybe there was a easier way. So, thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna run over. So if you do have to jump off, I completely understand. But I'm gonna get into the student transfer process. Um, I guess this could have been a section in itself. But I'm gonna go through this. Again, if you need to jump off, please do so. But we are going to start the student transfer protocol checklist. That's a tough one to say. So, looking at that one, let me get my student in context here. Okay, we are going to look at two scenarios in here. We're going to look at just doing a single student, bringing them over, and then you can also do this. You can do a bulk transfer as well. So if they're siblings, for example, my nieces and nephews all go to Rittman. If they're changing to a different school, you can do it bulk. But we're going to look at 1 and 8. Those are just single students, and then also bringing over their assessments. So I think most of our districts now use final forms. So it is important that when you are getting students from a different district, so if they're with one of our ITC districts, you can easily transfer them without a problem. If you are a final forms district, let the parent enroll them through final forms. So this is the district they're going to. The sending district, so in this case is going to be Rittman. So Rittman would do the transfer as they would. Okay, so they're going to transfer them over to TCCSA test. I'm going to go through the process of enrolling the student. Once that student is enrolled in DASL, they're going to have their DASL ID for the new district. And I am going to go into final forms and update with this student ID. So then when I release the student from final forms, it will match that student ID and it will bring them over and update that student record in DASL. Okay, so it's very important that you don't want to bring them over right away. You want to go through that, let that district transfer, and then you're going to enroll them before you actually release them from final forms. So let's look at Tyler here. So we are going to go through the process of transferring him. Oop, and I just got my pages all out of whack. Hold on 1 second. Yep. Oh, I just flipped my pages over. That's what I did. Okay. Also on the first page, or page 3, there are a couple FYIs on there. One thing to note, if you are transferring a student, so you are the district that the student is leaving, remember this does not automatically withdraw the student. You still have to go through that withdrawal process. The receiving district, please check that bottom one. So if it does match if you're doing the bulk enroll because it's a family or there's multiple kids. If there is one that is matching an EMIS ID, you want to make sure you click on the details button and do that one through details. Don't do it through the bulk enroll, or it will override that other student that had the same EMIS ID. So put a star next to that one to make sure you're always double checking the results when you have those pending students. So first is our sending district. So in this case, this is going to be Rittman. He is moving from Rittman and he is going to TCCSA test. So from within the student, I have the student in context. Okay, so we're at the building level. Let me get him in context. Okay, I'm going to go to SIS student, and I'm going to go to my student transfer. The sending district has the easiest part because they're only going to do really 2 steps. They're going to transfer the student and they're going to transfer the assessments. So very, very simple. So what grade or what school year is the student going into? You can see we do now have 25-26 in there. That was with the last update. However, we have not ran school year initialization. That will start in January. So I'm going to put him in this current school year, 24-25. I'm going to search for the district. So I'm going to start typing it in. If you know the district IRN, if you have it in front of you, you can type that in as well. And then this is at the district level, then I will pick what building he is going to. So 3 things, the school year, the district, and the building. And then I'm going to hit transfer. Okay, so you can see now he is being transferred. So the status is pending. So then we're going to skip all the way over to scenario 8, which is the receiving district. So I am the receiving district. So I'm going to go to my TCCSA test district. Okay. And then I want to find my pending students. Okay. So here's the breadcrumb trail. You can see it there on page 14. Or like I did, I can just type in pending and it will bring me right to that area. Okay. So if I click on search, here is Tyler. So I'm going to bring him into my district. So it says he's coming from Rittman from the high school, and he's coming to us to the district at the high school level. Okay. This is where if you're doing a bulk enroll, you could click bulk here. I believe that's scenario 5. So 2 would be the sending district and 5 is the receiving. That would be for your bulk, but we're just doing the one off. If there is any errors, you would see that over here on the side. And that is what you see on that first page on page 3. That's where that information is coming from. If there was matching EMIS IDs, you would make sure you click on details, but we're going to click on details anyways to go through it. So if I click detail, okay, so I'm not going to accept him yet. I want to look at my marking patterns first. Okay, so it says that it needs to be mapped in order to transfer that course history. So if I say click here, it's going to bring up anything that is not matched. Okay, so and unfortunately, it's nothing is matched. So I'm going to have to match these. So if I click on my pencil, so I'm going to look, what do I want to bring into my district? So depending on your district, you might have some schools take semester grades, so they get half credit at semester time. So you can see here in our test district, we have semester 1 and semester 2, as well as the all year final. That would be for my all year grades. Do I necessarily need to bring in every grading period? Not necessarily. So remember, this is going into his course history. So if this is, so my receiving marking pattern, this is going to semester 1. And then what reporting term that it's going to go towards. So if it's going to go towards the semester average or if it's going to be the final grade. And in this case, because I took the final, it's going to go towards the final. I'm going to do the same thing for semester 2 and the final. And then as well as my all year. This is going to be my all year and my final. The grades I'm going to leave as is. So notice I have a A+. The district that it came from did not have an A+. I'm gonna click on save. And then I'm gonna do this for each of them. I'm just gonna do this real quick. Finals. Scott's here to guide me to tell me if I missed one. I knew they wouldn't be matched, so I knew it was gonna take a minute to do this. Oops. And my all year final. And one more year. And then you can see there's a Rittman Middle School on there as well. So if he took any high school credit while he was in the middle school, that would populate for that. Here. And we're just going to do the final for these, all your finals. Okay, so now everything has the green go, so everything is mapped properly. So once I have everything mapped properly, now I can go through the enroll process. So if you look right here, now it no longer says click here to map, and that warning disappeared. So now I can say register the student. So it's going to bring over demographic information. And so here's the demographic information it's pulling over. You can see all the information's listed on here. If you need to edit anything here, you can edit from here. So if anything has changed, obviously their address and things might have changed since they're coming to your district. But right here is the transfer option, very important step if you want to include that course history, attendance, and assessments. So now I have additional tabs that I can bring over that information. And then where they're coming from Rittman, and then I would move on. So then I'll go to my next. Oh, missed that one. Admission date, so that's today's date. So if I'm admitting them today, there. Grade, okay. I think I have them all now. Transfer option. I swear those were checked earlier, but I think because I missed something, it unchecked them. This is where you can update the student's email address for your district if you're a Google district, which most of them are. Okay. This would be your family groups. We're just going to go to next. This is EMIS. So are they attending full-time? Are they attending you part-time in the JVS part-time? What's it going to be? I'm going to leave them as full-time. And then the course history, what do you want to bring over? Okay, and you can see that it's going to be mapped. I'm going to select all of them because I want all of their credits to come over, including the middle school, because I care that they took a high school credit class in middle school. And then the next one is attendance. I might not care so much about middle school attendance, but I definitely want to bring over all the high school attendance. So now I'm just going to select those instead of selecting them all. And then my assessments, it will only allow me to bring over the ACT. So I'm going to check that I do want that brought over, but then we are going to import the ACT, the other assessment scores for him. So if I click on finish, Thinking. Yeah, because I didn't do the other two or three, whatever it was. It's just thinking now. And remember, you want to go through this process first before you release them from final forms. Once they are generated and created, they'll have their student ID, and then you would release them or put that information into final forms and then release them. So everything is updated. Okay, so these are all the courses that were not found in the receiving school. Okay, the student was imported successfully. So now if I search for him, I now have Tyler. So if I click on him, let's go to the students. So now if I look at his profile, that information is going to be brought over. So his information is now here. So he's been transferred. If I look at, we'll see what came over for his course history. So you can see all these classes and his final marks were added for all those classes imported from Rittman. There are a couple other scenarios, like I said, for bulk assigning or bulk transferring, that's 2 and 5. If there's a student you don't want to include is scenario 4. And then if you're moving students within your district, I think that's 4. Yes. So you can do building to building transfers within your district. But basically the concept is the same, whether you're doing a singleton or if you're doing the bulk. So that's kind of all the different scenarios. Appendix A, B, and C are just telling you what is going to import when you are bringing them over and registering them. It's showing you all the fields that it will bring over. Appendix D, you might want to look at sometime in the future. This is if you are bringing students over constantly from like a district, you can actually follow that breadcrumb trail and you can set up your marking patterns so that they are set. So you don't have to do that individually like I did for Tyler here in this situation. The last thing that I want to show you is Appendix G is the transfer in history. So you have your transfer in and your transfer out. Since Tyler was transferred into my district, he'll be in my transfer in history. And then in Rittman, he would be in the transfer out history. So if I look here, I'm just going to search for all times. And then you can see here, Tyler was brought in. I'm glad I have a lot of relatives because it's easy to bring them in. Okay, but you can see, and then I can look at all the details that were transferred in for him. Last thing that I would do with him. So if I look at Tyler, if you remember correctly, so if I look at him and I go to his assessments, the only thing it allowed me to bring over was his ACT scores. So here are his ACT scores. If I look at anything else in assessments, such as his end of course exams, there is nothing here. So I do not have anything here. So you would also want the sending district to send any of their assessments. So let me skip over real quick back to Rittman. I think it's going to copy his ID. Okay, so then what I would do So I'm going to extract his assessment information. So I'm going to go to SIS assessment, assessment extract. So this is the sending district. So I'm going to put in the student ID for that student. If you have multiples, you can separate them by commas or put in your ad hoc membership here. And then I'm going to come down here and say what assessment I want. Yes, these are drop downs, even though these don't have little drop down arrows, different than all your other screens. If I click on it, it pulls up the menu. So if I want my end of course assessments, I'm going to say extract. So put it in my downloads. I'm just going to leave it there for time's sake. Okay, so now in the receiving district, I'm going to go to assessment imports. I'm going to find that file. Okay, it is, remember, it was an extract. So I'm not going to end of course. I'm not picking an assessment type. I am picking, it was from the extract because it's in that format. I'm going to click on browse. It was in my downloads. I left it there. Pick that long file name, click on open. And I'm going to say upload. Maybe. There it goes. Okay, so it uploaded 6 of 6 records, so I can view on the import management or the import history. So I can show me if I had any errors, and then my matched records would be here. So it brought them all over, everything matched. So now if I go and I put him in context, and I go to his assessments, and remember, end of course was blank before, and now it pulled in all of his assessment scores. So again, there's a lot of communication between the sending and receiving district. But if they are willing to send you, it's just a bunch of clicking to make sure all that information gets imported properly. I know most everybody dropped off, but those of you that are left, are there any questions? Since we are over time, I'm not going to. So importing and exporting from a career center. Your career centers will create an export for you so you can import the course history for those students attending that career center. So typically the homeschools want the final grade. So in that case, depending on what career center, you might have semester classes where they're earning credits at the semester break, or you might have all year classes. So typically, because we only want the final and we're not going for the each individual grading period, they would export with Fin. So in our final mark for all year, and if they had semester only classes. So in this case, our 3 areas would be finals for those 3. Then in our receiving school or our home school, we would pick the homeschool down here as well. So I would pick for TCCSA. So this is going to list all of the districts that has that a student attends that career center. So notice that we're not on there because we don't have any students in that district. So I can't go through the export process, but they would export their finals to the homeschool and then click export. This defaults to state ID, state student ID. You would leave that as is, since that is an individual ID for that student, so it can match it in the homeschool district. So then switching to the homeschool, so with the homeschool, I have my two tabs. I have my course history and I have my attendance. So when you are pulling this over, sorry, let me switch to import. So when I am importing from the course history or the attendance, okay, if I only want the mark type of final, then I'm going to just choose the fin down here, and that is a final grade. So, and then what kind of a mark type it is or credit type, it is earned. Okay, so I'm just bringing in those final grades. You would leave it as perform the import and create the files based on the student's SSID. This is the only one that you might change on this screen, besides adding the terms to bring in those grades. If your district does not use plus or minuses, you might want to remove them if the Career Center does use plus and minuses. So you can put a check there, and then it would, if a student had an A minus, it would of course take the minus off and give that student an A. This you are never going to put anything in because it will override the information, and you do not want to do that. So you are going to leave that blank, so it doesn't override anything, especially it will override CCP location IRNs. So that's a big no-no, because we don't want those overwritten. And then you would find the file that the Career Center would send to you. You would find that and you would click on the import process. So that is, the Career Center would do the export. The homeschool would do the import. This is usually done depending on the district. It might be done at semester time for semester 1 final grades, and then it might be done at the end of the school year for semester 2 final grades, maybe early in May for our seniors. So you might run it once with just seniors, then you might run it again at the end of the school year. So it would bring in juniors and seniors. So if there was any changes from the first time that you ran it to the second time that you ran it with those seniors, it would update that record. The attendance would be the same thing. The Career Center would send the attendance file, and you would import that the same way. Perform an import. You would find that import file that they sent to you, and you would import it. We're going to skip over the student tab because we're not going to use that. But if you look at your import history, so I'm going to bring up a district in context. So looking at my district here, if I look at the import history, it's going to show you each time, each file that was imported. So if you needed to re-download it, you could, who created it and when. So you can see they run them at semester time as well as multiple times at the end of the year. This column here is the important one to double check, because what this does is it shows the mapping that you have here. So if you are trying to bring over the finals and you accidentally put it as progress used or progress 1 or not used, and it's supposed to be an earned because it's a final, you actually have the option to delete it and re-import it. So if I click here where it says mapping, it's going to show me what term, what the mark type is, and the credit type. So it's showing me that it's a final mark type, so it's earned. And this is for final 2, so they do semester grades at semester 1 and semester 2. So if something was wrong on this screen, I can actually click on the trash can to delete that entire file. So it would delete it, and then I can report it with the correct mapping. If you are bringing over semester grades or semester averages, so I can click here, and I would choose if this was first semester. I want the final at the semester time, not the average. Or if you wanted to bring over the averages, you would choose average. But in this case, I'm going to bring the semester one final over, and it is earned. And then at the end of the year, I also want the final, so final two, and I would do the same process, and it would be earned. So again, if I'm doing an average, it would be a progress two, so it would look like this. But in this case, I'm doing both finals. They're both earned, and then I would import it that way. That's so that they could get the partial credit for the semester class at the semester time. And always, if you make a mistake, go back to your import history, double check the mapping. If the mapping is not correct, then you can delete. As always, if you have any questions or issues, put in a ticket to support@TCCSA, and Rebecca or I will be happy to get answers for you. Thank you.